Welcome to Leadership Speaking Radio, the podcast for leaders and changemakers who want to learn how to communicate with impact, authenticity, and human connection to their peers, teams, and customers in order to build better relationships, better their bottom lines, and become better leaders. My name is Dr. Laura Penn. I'm the founder of the Leadership Speaking School, and I'm your host. Visit the website www.theleadershipspeakingschool.com to find out more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time that you speak. Now, let's get straight into our topic. Welcome back, everyone. We are here for another episode of Leadership Speaking Radio. Yes, we are. This is episode number 60. And I'm calling it an Extrovert's Guide to Leadership Communication. Yes, this is a companion to the previous episode, which was an Introvert's Guide. There's a theme here. I want to spend my time talking to you in this episode about what it means to communicate as an extrovert. What are some of the pitfalls and challenges, and what are some of the opportunities? So if you're an extrovert, this is for you. Now, I'm going to just come out and say it. I am in this category, and I have been an extrovert my whole speaking career until a couple of years ago, where I figured out that I was an extrovert and how that wasn't working. I learned the hard way. I learned by crash landing a really important high stakes talk because I spent the whole talk pushing myself out to the audiences. As you know, I like to say, spraying my energy all over the room, and that message landing exactly nowhere. In fact, it probably just evaporated underneath the cracks of the door and through the windows. It certainly did not land in the hearts and minds of my audience that night. And I knew it because I could feel this weird vibe that they weren't really listening. But here's the thing, guys. I wasn't really listening either. And this is an extrovert's problem, where it's so much spray and noise and sound and push that you're not paying attention to the most important thing in the room, which is your audience, and whether or not they are getting what you are saying. And in the heat of the passion of trying to make sure that they are getting what you are saying, you are pushing and forcing and here it is again, spraying. So this is a familiar territory for me. And I can say with some credibility that I know what I'm talking about here. So let's get into some of the elements related to the delivery performance of speaking, of leadership speaking, that is a bit of a minefield for an extrovert. And let's talk about what are some alternatives to what's not working. Yeah? Let's begin with presence. Very important that you understand as an extrovert that your presence is in the fight or flight response mode. You are so high-strung and switched on. All of your wheels are turning at the same time. There's so much energy being used in you communicating that the telltale sign that you are an extrovert pushing yourself out into your audience with your presence is that during and after the interaction, you feel exhausted. Yeah, you just need to go lie down somewhere because think about it. You've used so much of your energy pushing yourself out. And dare I say, pushing yourself out without a target. So that's even more waste, right? So when it comes to presence, the work, if you're an extrovert, is to rein in your energy, to focus it, not to spray it, to concentrate it so that it can connect to the red bullseye of the hearts and minds of your audiences, not to loosen it and make it go everywhere and anywhere without any control over it. So this is hard work for extroverts because it's like trying to contain a lightning rod in a can. That's my metaphor for the moment. Whether that works or not, I don't know. Like you're trying to contain something that has high energy and intensity in a small container. Now, I'm not saying shut all systems down and disappear and wear the mask of withdrawal. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take this energy explosion and control it. It's kind of like, you know what it makes me think of? Those superhero movies where the superhero, it's always the same arc for the story. The superhero has just discovered that they have superpowers, right? And they're not very good at using the superpower. So, they put things on fire or they blow things over or they do too much of stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Those scenes, the learning scenes. And then you always see this in the same story arc. You see, okay, so now they can't control it, and then they're going to do some work now to hone it in, right? There's a soundtrack, some music's happening. Maybe the scenes are going pretty fast now, and they're trying different things, and they're doing things over and over again, and they're controlling and honing and controlling and honing. Extroverts, that's you. So you have a superpower. It's your energy, but the energy needs to be controlled and managed so that it can be focused. And when it's focused, believe you me, your world will change. Your life, as you know it, will be different. When you have learned how to focus this superpower and channel it just so, you will spark new things in the hearts and minds of your audiences. You will spark new things in your own awareness of yourself as a communicator and as a human being. And you will make a connection with your audience that is different from what you were trying to do in the spray mode. So how do you work on that focus? You have to work on what it means to work in presence. You have to work on the craft of understanding presence. You have to play on the margins of what presence is. So you have to go all out with exploring the outer limits of being in fight or flight. And you have to go to the other extreme. What does it mean to go into contraction, into the freeze response? You have to understand what those parameters are, the barriers, right? Those edges. And then you need to discover what's in the middle, the second circle. So this is embodied work that takes time in a masterclass or in one-to-one work, right? Where you're doing body work to understand presence. And your work is to rein in this powerful cloud of energy and focus it and channel it and move it with purpose. Now let's go into the breath, extroverts. If you imagine the fight or flight response, you imagine needing a lot of breath. Because in order to fight or to take flight, aka run away, your body is preparing itself for violent muscular action. And what do we need to do that? We need oxygen. So we'll be breathing with our nostrils flared, we being the extroverts among us. Our nostrils will flare, our mouths will open, and we're taking in a lot of air. And another telltale sign that you are in this push response, this extroverted response in your presence and with your breath, is you will feel your nostrils flare when you are talking. And this is quite a thing when you're on camera and the camera has a close-up and there are your nostrils. flapping. It's a telltale sign you're extroverting. Okay. But what this does is you take too much air in. It might even make you burp because you have so much air. Guys, this whole extroverted thing, you're just not controlling things. Okay. You're not controlling the air. You're not controlling the energy. So in breathing, you need to gather your power, suspend, and release your power. You need to move your breath, controlling it. You need to learn how to move your breath to your abdomen. So it's not all happening here in the chest, but that true breathing is about deep abdominal breathing. Yeah? So these are things that are involved in the craft of learning about breathing for leadership communication and public speaking. So let's now move into the voice. I don't have to tell you what extroverts do with their voice when they talk, do I? Yeah? The combination of all this energy in presence, the combination of all this air and flaring nostrils, you know what that's going to do to the voice, right? Bombastic. I'm not going to even try to replicate it here on this podcast because I don't want to hurt your ears. But it's the equivalent of using a bullhorn to communicate. And let me tell you this. Nobody in your audience wants to hear you shouting. For two reasons. One, they can't hear what you are saying. When you are shouting, your articulation, your enunciation are not clear. You're not audible, right? And then the other reason is nobody wants to be sprayed with a fire-like voice and the equivalent of being yelled at, right? People will tune out. People will disengage, dissociate from what you are saying. This is what happened to me in that talk. I just saw people like looking away and looking and seeing what time it was and starting to fiddle, right? Your bombastic voice is not nice to listen to. So the work as an extrovert is to stop pushing your voice. Is to stop working so hard trying to compensate for whatever it is that people are not listening to you or people maybe haven't listened to you. Remember, these are all habits that we've embodied in our lives. And the habit of being an extrovert, well, my habit of being an extrovert was people weren't listening to me, so I raised my voice. People didn't notice me, so I made myself bigger, right? These were my habits. What are yours? If you're an extrovert, what are the roots of you needing to speak so loudly that it hurts people's ears? What are the roots of you pushing yourself, needing to push yourself onto the audiences that you're talking to? So it's important to do this kind of uncovering and discovery work. But back to the voice, what people want to hear are the words that you are speaking. The articulation of how you say things, the clarity. Your voice should be clear and audible and nice to listen to. There should be melody and different range inside of your voice to create color. And that color, of course, creates nuance and feeling, prosody, right? So this is the work for you extroverts out there. To stop yelling and pushing and start connecting and feeling and making that voice touch the hearts and minds and the ears of your listeners. That's the work. And one really powerful way to know if you're pushing is to count to 10. If you start your count with 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry if I hurt your ears there, right? That's a push, that one, that really loud one. The work is, you can use your fingers like this. If you're looking on video, I'm making my fingers into like a little donut shape. You take a breath in and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 10. It's like a string is moving from your lips straight out in front of you. You don't want to go up with push. 1, 2, 3. That's an indication that you're pushing. It's smooth. It's a breath, and then you speak on the breath. 1, right? But be careful, you're not sitting on your voice and contracting. It's not 1, 2, 3. That's the problem of sitting on your voice or contracting. You want open vocal channels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Either way, it's going to take work. It's going to take work for you to discover your habit of pushing in the first place. And it's going to take work for you to discover the alternative, which is not pushing. And once you do this work, like those superheroes in the shows that I was talking about, where they're managing their superpower, when you learn how to manage your superpower, like I've already said, everything will change. Everything will improve. Instead of leaning back because your voice is so loud and it's so overwhelming, your audiences will begin to lean forward because they hear you and they want more. And this relationship will start to be something that you notice. You'll start to think, oh, so I don't need to push in order to connect with my audiences. Oh, so I can just have this voice that is a full voice. It's not a contracted voice. It's a full voice, but it's not a pushing voice. And people hear me, and I'm clear, and I'm articulate. Oh, and once you do that, you're going to save energy. So you shouldn't feel tired after you are done talking. You should feel invigorated because communication is supposed to feel good. You've heard me say that before, haven't you? And when you remove yourself from this extreme of pushing and come to this middle place, to the second circle of connecting, it starts to feel good. And you want to do more of what makes you feel good, don't you? At least that's what I want to do. And most creatures on the planet, we are hardwired for this reward response. If something feels good, we want to do it again. So that's the work for you, extroverts out there. Stop pushing and start connecting. Stop trying so hard to be seen and heard. Know that you are enough, just as you are. Know that you will be seen and you will be heard the moment you stop pushing. So that's your work. That's the challenge. I cannot express how wonderful and how rewarding it is to be on the other side of being one of those push extrovert people. I have made more friends. More collaborations have happened. More people have come up and talked to me after the talk that I have given because they don't feel scared of me. Relationships have deepened. Knowledge has been transferred more effectively. You see where I'm going with this? So extroverts, there is a whole new world to discover when you come down from that place where you are bullhorning yourself into your audience. There's another place to live that brings out the best in you as a person and that brings out the best in your audience. How about that? I invite you and I challenge you to be bold and to take risks and to dare to stop pushing. Show up in your body with your feet firmly on the ground. Release your tension. Sit in to yourself. Trust yourself. Know yourself. Know that you have what it takes to communicate. And go. Remember that if you feel tired or if you feel your nostrils flaring, those are signs that you're going into extrovert mode. Rein that in. Channel your energy. Move with purpose. This is craft work, and it will help to make you a better communicator. All right. Lots to take in there. That's going to be the end of this episode. Let me wrap things up. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed delivering it. Subscribe now to the Leadership Speaking Radio podcast to be sure not to miss an episode. And don't forget to visit the website, www.theleadershipspeakingschool.com, to learn more about how we can support you to show up as the best version of yourself every time that you communicate with your peers, teams, and customers. So that's all for now. And I want to just send you off again with that little sentence that I like to use, which is, communication is supposed to feel good. Ladies and gentlemen, make it happen. And if you have friends, colleagues, or family members that could benefit from this message that I have to give you in this episode or any of the other episodes of Leadership Speaking Radio, go ahead and share the fact that this podcast exists. Help them to discover it, just like you're discovering it for yourself. Hey, I look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care of yourselves, thrive, don't just survive, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.